Here's the Power BI screen. This is what I typically use as Power BI when I'm building out business intelligence. And if I come over to this screen here, this is what I call the data screen. And basically, I call it the data view, but now I think Microsoft has renamed it the uh, to the table to the table view, as you can see here. But as we see, these are all quarterbacks, just listed as player, but these are all quarterbacks. We'll see how these guys are really ranked or listed as power players in the league as we know it. And it really kind of threw me off when I actually brought the data in. And I was looking at the data and I was like, man, I really didn't know that some of these players are really that good. As a matter of fact, I'd be totally transparent with you. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, right? So if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, I mean, if you're not a Dallas Cowboy fan, that's okay, right? It's okay. You know, you don't have to send me a lot of hater emails or a lot of hater messages or anything like that. I'm just saying I am a Dallas Cowboy fan, but I was also more so a Tony Romo fan than I am a Dak Prescott fan. Not that I don't like Dak, it's just that I really like Tony Romo. With that, I didn't really realize how good Dak Prescott was until I looked at his numbers when I brought in the data. I was like, whoa, this guy here is super impressive. I really didn't know it. And for some of you guys out there that are Dak Prescott haters or Cowboy haters, I mean, that's cool. I mean, I'm okay with that, you know, but let's keep it business. But when I show you how the data comes in, you know, you some of you guys you may take a second look as well and be like, I didn't know. I still don't like him, but I didn't know. And I'm not gonna say I don't like him and I didn't know. I'm just saying I like Tony Romo more and I didn't know. Okay, and that may be because you know I actually had tickets to the game when Romo was playing against the I think the Philadelphia Eagles, and he had the ball on the 5 yard line, the 10 yard line, and ended up making a spectacular play, and I became a Tony Romo fan. Anyway, no more. That's neither here nor there because I know some of you guys are like, man, I don't like the Cowboys, and I'm not listening to you, and that's cool. But if you want to make this money, you'll stick around because I'm going to show you how you can make this money in sports, doing what you love to do. Well, I'm going to show you how to make this money in sports if sports is what you love to do, and you can make a lot of money at it. I'm talking about 6 months. I'm talking about six figures within 4 to 6 months. So with that said, what I'm going to do is what I did was over here. What I did was I showed you, you know, the data that I brought in. Now I'm going to come back over to what we call the report view. And the first thing that I normally do when I'm building out a Power BI dashboard is I'll go into the table view, and I want to bring that data in. I want my data in the table view to kind of resemble the data that's over here, so that I can get an idea of what I want to see. And eventually, you know, I'll either take data out of the table, or I'll keep the data in the table. I'm not sure how this is going to work right now. Now, with that said, you say, well, Tarai, what's a table? A table is a spreadsheet. For those of you that have some question as to, you know, what's a table? A table really is a spreadsheet. That's at the end of the day, it's a spreadsheet. In tech, you know, we can call it, in tech, we'll call a spreadsheet a table, or we may call it a data frame if we're using Python, but it's nothing more than a table. So again, when I say anybody can do this, anybody can do it, and I know you can do it because I can do it. And I know I can do it because I did it. So I brought in the visual here, which is the table. I'm going to go over and I'm going to bring in data, and data is just information. For those who don't know, data is information. It's the information that's in the table, or the information that's in a spreadsheet. Okay, and I'm going to bring in the data into this table, and it's real simple. I'm just going to drag and drop. I'm just going to drag all the data in that I want to see. So I brought the player, so we can see here. This is the player name. I brought the player name in. I'm going to bring in touchdowns, yards per attempt, because these are all stats that I think are relatively, you know, not necessarily needed, but the type of stats that we look at when we talk about a quarterback. Completion percentage, I'm going to bring it down here. And right now, it really doesn't matter where I bring it into the table. Completion, COMP is completions, passing yards. Now, when I bring in passing yards, I am also, well, let me go back. So as we see, I have sum of passing yards. I don't want to. What I'm getting is I'm getting the sum of all the passing yards of all the players that have passing yards, sum of touchdowns of all the players that have touchdowns, sum of completions. So that total, which is the sum down here, I don't want to see that total. So I'm going to take that total out, which I'm basically just going to go in and don't summarize each one of those particular statistics. Taking each one of those guys out. Now I've gotten rid of the total. But I say that, but I have passing yards. Now, I want to actually see who has the most passing yards from top to bottom. So I'm just going to reshuffle this so I can see who's the leading passer. And I know last year the leading passer was Tua Tagovailoa, right? But I think what we don't normally get in the stats that we get when we listen to our favorite sports radio, sports TV, or our sports talk show is, how much further is the second player behind? So as we can see here, Tua Tagovailoa is in first place, and was the leading passer, which I knew that, but I didn't realize that Jared Goff was the second lead, and Dak Prescott was third. Again, as I said before, that kind of threw me off. I really wasn't expecting that. So, what I also did prior to starting this video, is I created what's called a measure, and that measure allowed me to see, well, how many yards is each player behind the leading person. So of course Tua Tagovailoa is the leading quarterback in passing yards. So I wanted to see what that player, what his how far everyone else was behind him. So I created a measure, and I call that measure minimum quarterback passing yards. Just trying to find where the measure is behind the leader. Max passing yards behind the leader. So I created a measure, which is just a calculation, and it's called passing yards behind the leader. So I'm going to bring that in. So now we see that the passing yards, Tua Tagovailoa was 46.24, Jared Goff was 45.75, Dak Prescott was 45.16, right? Now I see that Tua Tagovailoa was the leading passer. He's 0 yards behind the leader because he's the leader. But then Jared Goff was only 49 yards behind Tua Tagovailoa. Dak Prescott was 108 yards behind Tua Tagovailoa, and Josh Allen was 318 yards behind Tua Tagovailoa. And of course, we talk about quarterbacks in the NFL or quarterbacks in professional football. We know that Patrick Mahomes is that guy, right? And Patrick Mahomes, he was behind Tua Tagovailoa by 441 yards, right? So I just thought that was interesting. So now, I'm seeing some stats that I really didn't really pay a whole lot of interest to until I actually, brought the data in to, get ready to create this project. Now, I've got actually I want to bring in a little bit more data into this table because I'm not going to use all of it, but I'm going to use quite a bit to build out other visuals. And other visuals, just visuals is just the things you look at, the number of something, or looking at a column chart, or looking at a bar graph, or looking at a pie chart, or something like that. Those are all visuals. So I know I'm going to want to use several other statistics. So I'm going to bring in the passer rating, and we're going to see here in a little bit, how the passer rating really measures up to the number one, the top quarterbacks, right? So let's say we actually use sack yards as well, because you can pass yards, but how many yards do you get sacked on? Let's say how many sacks do you take in order to make those passes? Interceptions, again, something else that is not good for a quarterback. The number of attempts, we've got completions, so let's say the number of attempts. We've got yards per attempt, and I think I brought in attempts. I don't see where it dropped in at. Let's see, yards per attempt. Oh, sum of attempts. I need to make that just don't summarize, and I want to bring that up close to attempts and completions. There we go. And we have first down percentage. We're going to bring that in. 20-yard passes, 40-yard passes, and how long the longest pass was. And I actually want to bring in first. I don't really know what first is. First percentage, first, it's about the same. So I'm going to take out, I'm going to keep that there. I'm going to take out the sum. I want that to don't summarize. So now, as you can see now, we've got a table. And like I said before, a table is just, if you have a spreadsheet, a table is just, a spreadsheet, right? So let's make that a little smaller so we can see more of what's going on, but that's too small and I can't read that way back here. So I'm going to leave that where it is. So now we've got a table. And, the first thing I want to do is I kind of want to make this a little, in order for me to really want to work on this, or really want to build this project out and say I'm having fun doing what I'm doing, what I want to do initially is what just happened here? Filters. Okay, what I want to do is I am going to bring in the little, let's take quarterback, take that page out. Delete that page. Okay. So what I am going to do is I am going to bring in the logo. Oh, I know what I did. That's what I did right there. I took too much stuff out and I couldn't see the whole screen. So I want to bring in a backdrop for where I'm going to place the logo. So I'm going to say insert. Going to bring in a rectangle. Going to bring that up. Just making it a little smaller so I can sort of fit the whole screen. Just building a heading out. Just building a heading out for this particular project. So I brought in a background. Of course, the NFL logo or the professional football logo. Again, this video has nothing to do with the NFL. This video, I am not paid by NFL. I am not shopping this particular project to the NFL or anybody else. I am just building out this project. So just a disclaimer there. So we know that the professional football logo is red, white, and blue as we know it. So this particular background is blue to match the professional football logo. So then I am going to bring in that particular logo. And the reason why I'm doing this is because we're building a dashboard, right? So in order to have a nice looking dashboard, we have to have, it's got to be professional, right? It's got to be professional. Let's see, I think I took out. Let's come out of here. I think I had taken out my. Let's see here. I had taken out my drive that has my images on it. So I just pull that back in. I'm going to go to desktop. I'm going to go to desktop. Call it my NFL project, and here's my logo that I want to use. Again, this is not for sale. I don't want the NFL calling me saying, hey, you're out there selling our products, because I am not. Let's see, insert image. And let's see here. What did I do? Did it come up? No. What did I do with that? That disk is called what? Here we go. It's my D drive. And it's in Power BI. Drive, data analytics, Power BI, and let's see. Sample reports, yeah. And where is it? Power BI reports. No. Report. No project. Boom. So that is my logo that I'm going to be using. Now I just need to resize it. Now, of course, this color is not the same color as my background, and that's okay. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to format my background to match my, well, to almost match. I know it's not going to be exact because I don't know the font color. I mean, I don't know the actual NFL, the professional football color. So I am going to, let's see here. General effects. And I'm going to call shape, style, feel, and this is a color that I've used before. That color is too light because it's not blending in well. That color blends in pretty good. So I'm going to use that as my background color. Oh wow. Now, as you can see, I have a table that is the color, a table for the professional football. So now I can find my passing yards individuals. I can look at it from passing yards to how far the individual is behind the leader. If I want to see which quarterback has the most touchdowns, I can reformat. Now I can see that Dak Prescott, again, that interested me. I didn't realize that he was a leading passer with the leading touchdown, leading quarterback with touchdowns in the NFL. As of last year, he had 105 passer rating. Now, I can actually look at it by passer rating, and now I can see that the quarterback that had the highest passer rating wasn't necessarily the quarterback that was a leading passer or the quarterback that was leading in touchdowns. Jacoby Brissett had a quarterback rating of 146. Keenan Allen had a quarterback rating of 135. Didn't know this, right? And as I go down the list, I can see that the majority of the guys with the higher passer ratings were not who were normally considered to be the top quarterbacks, right? Brock Purdy, who was considered to be a top quarterback, is probably the first quarterback on the passer rating list that's listed. He's listed at 113. Dak Prescott is listed at 105. Kirk Cousins at 103. Lamar Jackson at 102. And then Tua Tagovailoa, who's the leading passer, was listed at 101. So with that said, then I'm trying to figure out, what am I really taking into account when I look at the passer rating? Does that really matter to me? But bottom line is, that's where we're starting at when we're creating our initial visuals for our quarterback dashboard. Now, I'm going to look at a couple other visuals, add a couple other visuals before I cut this video off, because again, I don't want to spend too much time on this one video. I know some of you guys have other things going on outside of me watching a long was considered to be in the content where a long tail video, but I will make a part 2 just so that we can have some idea, just so we can finish this thing up, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in what's considered to be a gauge. It's a gauge visual. And with the gauge visual, I am going to look at, let's see, in the gauge, I want to show passing yards, maximum quarterback passing yards. So in that value, I am going to put maximum value quarterback passing. And then I'm going to find the minimum quarterback passing yards. So basically what that means is, what quarterback in this table had the maximum quarterback passing, well, what was not the quarterback, but in the quarterback table, which in the passing yards column, what was the maximum, what was the most number of passing yards? And I added that to the maximum value. Then using that same column, quarterback passing yards or passing yards, I said, well, what was the minimum number of yards? So then I'm going to take the player, which is the quarterback, and add that player to the value, so that we can see what that player's passing yards was compared to the minimum. So here we see that the minimum passing yards was a -7. Now I'm assuming that was probably a touchdown, an interception that was ran back 7 yards or something. I don't know. And then the maximum passing yards should be 46.24, which we know that Tua Tagovailoa had the most yards. So if I go back to passing yards and I look at Tua Tagovailoa, he should be at 46.24. So we see here Tua Tagovailoa is at 46.24, and the minimum passing yards was at -7. Yes, I guess you can go below 0. Now, what this gauge means is that if we select Jared Goff, let's see, Brock Purdy. Why is this not changing for me? My screen's not changing. My screen's not changing. Is it recording? Is my screen recording? Because my screen's not changing. I think it has something to do with my screen recording. I'm going to use another visual. These are some of the things you get when you are in tech. You have to work through issues. So I created another visual. I called it a slicer. So basically, you are able to select players. Dak Prescott, 43.65. Why is my visual not changing? We'll take that visual out and we'll do something different with it. Let's take out, count of player. That's not what we want to do. We want to use passing yards. Yeah, there we go. As I say, here, when you're working in tech, you're going to run up against issues or challenges. It's a matter of figuring out what those issues are, what those challenges are, and resolving those challenges. You're not expected to know everything, but you are expected to figure out, be able to figure some things out. So if I look at my visual here now, I see that the maximum passing yards is 46.24. We know that was Tua Tagovailoa. Someone's at -7. I'm not sure who that was. But if we select anywhere inside the table, now we see that Jordan Love was at 41.59, and this gauge is indicating what Jordan Love's passing yards were. So now If I come down to Josh Dobbs, I see that Josh Dobbs, his passing yards was 2464, and on the gauge it's showing that he was at 2464. So that's just what it's showing. So at this point, what I want to do is I'm going to keep this in here. Typically, you don't want to keep visuals that have the same type of data. The visuals, like for instance, this bottom table shows passing yards, and this gauge shows passing yards. Typically, we don't want to show that. We only want to show the data in one particular area. We're going to take that data out at a later point, but we may keep this gauge visual. We may not keep this gauge visual. We may keep this table visual. We may keep the table visual. We may not keep the table visual. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this information in here until we really dress this this report up. I'm going to bring in another gauge, and in this gauge, I'm going to bring in touchdowns. So in this gauge, I want to see touchdowns. So let's see. I'm going to call it minimum quarterback touchdowns, maximum quarterback touchdowns. So what does this mean? This means that the minimum quarterback touchdowns was 0. In the touchdown column, the least number of touchdowns that were in the touchdown column was 0. Yeah, you can't go negative. Well, you're not able to go negative 0 in the number of touchdowns. You got 0 or you have more than 0. And then the maximum touchdowns that a quarterback had was 36, right? So as we looked at before, I'm going to come over to the touchdown column. I'm going to sort it from greatest to least, and we see that Dak Prescott had 36 touchdowns, Jordan Love had 32 touchdowns, Brock Purdy had 31 touchdowns. So if I click Jordan Love, he had 32 touchdowns. We can see now that his touchdowns is 32. And we also see that Jordan Love had 4,159 yards passing. So now we're seeing how this dashboard thing really adds up. And when somebody is talking about it, when we see our favorite commentators talking on our favorite sports talk shows, they're able to get that information real quick because you click Baker Mayfield. Now you can get Baker Mayfield's information. He had 4,044 yards. He had 28 touchdowns, right? So now we have a pretty good idea of how that looks. Now let's look at quarterback rating. Let's look at rating. So I'm going to bring the gauge in one more time. And of course, we don't want to use the gauge for every visual, but these are things that I like to see in the gauge. But maybe look at it in a different way as well. But at the end of the day, it's a visualization. So I'm going to do the same thing with the gauge visual. I'm going to do the same thing with the quarterback rating visual. The minimum quarterback rating, I'm going to put in the minimum value. The max quarterback rating, I'm going to put in the max value, and the quarterback rating I am going to place in the value. So now if I click Josh Allen, I see that Josh Allen had a 92. If I look in the table, he had a 90. So we brought in several gauges. We have brought in several gauges. We brought in a table. We have a filter here, slicer here that's we're able to slice by player name. And we have the NFL logo that we brought in, or professional football logo that we brought in. And we put it on a backdrop or a header so that we just get some aesthetics there. Again, I definitely want to clarify that this is not a professional football organizations. We're not affiliated with any of the professional football organizations. We're not affiliated with any of the betting organizations. This is just what we're doing because we can using business analytics or business intelligence, data analytics using business intelligence. So we brought in several gauges. We also brought in the table, which we're getting our data from. As I said before, we're going to actually remove some of the data out of here. For instance, here we have passing yards, touchdowns, and quarterback rating. Eventually, we're going to take passing yards out, touchdowns, and ratings out. Just for the simple fact that we don't want to duplicate the data that we're analyzing. But before we do that, we also want to bring in some other data. We also want to bring in a couple of more visuals. Actually, we'll bring in a few more. I'm going to bring in a card visual. And in this card visual, what I want to see in this card is interceptions. That's something big for a quarterback. The quarterback's throwing a bunch of interceptions. So I want to see interceptions. So I'm going to bring interceptions in. It's the first thing I want to see. I'm going to bring in another card. And in this card, we're gonna format all of this a little later. Right now, I'm just trying to get the visuals in. We're gonna bring in another card, and as these guys are having big passing yards, we also want to see how many times are they sacked while they're sitting back there, trying to throw these passes. And the third visual we're gonna bring in is going to be another card. Gonna bring it down here. Again, we're going to format all of this stuff a little later, but right now we just want to get the data in because the data is the most important thing. Well, yeah, the data is the most important. So we've got interceptions, we've got sacks, and we want to bring in sack yards. If these guys get sacked, how many yards are they getting sacked for? So let's just look at Justin Fields. I like Justin Fields. I'm just picking on him. So right now it's saying 1-1-1, but we know he had more than one interception, and that's because I've got the wrong aggregation. I've got a count rather than a sum. So I'm going to sum the number of interceptions that he threw. Looks like he threw 9. How many sacks did he have? He had 44 sacks, where he was sacked 44 times. And the sack yards accumulated for 285 yards. So he has 9 interceptions, 44 sacks. He was 9 interceptions. He was sacked 44 times, and those 44 sacks accounted for a negative 285 yards. As I said before, I don't necessarily like to use red unless it's a negative number or it's meaning something negative. And of course, interceptions for a quarterback would be negative. So I am going to change the color of the interceptions to be red, the sacks to be red, and the sack yards to be red. Because we want to kind of be able to pull that out. You got sacked 9 times, you got sacked 44 times, 9 interceptions, and 285 yards accumulated in sack yards. So I'm going to pull that over just a little bit. Of course, these sizes and the fonts and all that kind of stuff, it's going to change, but I just want to be able to look at it here. Now, we're going to look at 2 other visuals. We're actually going to use the same visual. We're going to look at them 2 times. And basically, we always like to look at top 10. We hear about the top 10 quarterbacks, or is he's top 10 in the league. So we're going to look at passing yards. We already know that Tua Tagovailoa was the leading passer, but who are the top 10 leading passers? So I am going to bring the category in to be the player, which is the quarterback. I'm going to bring the value in to be passing yards. And basically the visual that we're looking at is it's a funnel. It's a funnel visual. And it's showing count right now, so I'm going to use sum. So now what we see is that this funnel is going down. So it's going to have the top, and it's going to go down to the bottom. And we've got a lot of quarterbacks, or a lot of guys that threw passes. Some were quarterbacks, and some may have been running backs or receivers that had plays to throw passes. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to just look at the top 10 quarterbacks, or the top 10 players, or top 10 players at that position. So I'm going to do a filter, and I'm going to say top end. I'm going to do top 10, and I'm going to say by value. The value is going to be by passing yards, and it's going to be the sum of passing yards, not the count of passing yards. And I'm going to apply the filter, and now we see we've got Tua Tagovailoa being number 1, Jared Goff being number 2, Josh Allen, and going all the way down to the top 10. It's the top 10 with Dak Prescott being number 3, down to number 10, which is Trevor Lawrence. So basically we've created a funnel, and this funnel is showing us the top 10 quarterbacks. Again, we're going to have to do some formatting here, but I'm not going to do all formatting right now. And I'm going to come back, and I'm going to use the funnel one more time. And as I use the funnel here, I want to see the quarterbacks by touchdown. So again, I'm going to use player in the category. And the value is going to be touchdowns. And again, it's going to be sum of touchdowns, not count of touchdowns. And we are going to do a filter. We're going to filter on the player. We're going to do a top end filter. We're going to do top 10. And we're going to do this one by touchdowns. We're going to click apply. And we're going to do sum of touchdowns, not count of touchdowns. Apply. So now we have Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, all the way down to Derek Carr. Right? So so now we can see that our dashboard is kind of dressing up a little bit. Again, we've got a lot of formatting to do, but that's okay. We'll do that here a little later. I'm going to bring in a few more visuals. One is going to be a card. Actually, the next few visuals are going to be card visuals, and basically a card is just where I can bring data in where it's going to show an actual number, not having to do a whole bunch of calculations. It's not a table. And here we're going to say attempts. How many passes this quarterback attempt? And we're going to do sum, not count. We're going to come back. We're going to add another card. And in this card, we are going to do completions. Again, you guys are going to see how this thing shape up after we start doing our formatting. But we've got completions. So we've got attempts, completions. That count is always coming up first. We're going to put the sum in there. And attempts, completions, yards per attempt. Let's do yards per attempt as well. Yards per attempt. We've got to get our card situated. And we have yards per attempt. Again, we need to sum that and not count it. And I think the last one we're going to do is completion percentage. These are all pieces of data that we use to judge our quarterbacks by. Completion percentage. And again, that should be a sum and not a count. So if we select Mac Jones, we can see, actually I can't see anything there, so I need to reduce the size of that call out value because I can't read. Okay, so Mac Jones had 345 attempts. He had 224 completions. .1 yards per attempt, and his completion percentage is 64.90. And if we select any quarterback, we'll see what's going to change for him. We go up to, let's go back to our leading passer again, which was Tua Tagovailoa. We see he had 568 attempts, 388 completions, 8.3 yards per attempt, 69.3% passing completions. We already know he had 4,624 yards total passing yards, 29 touchdowns with a 101 quarterback rating. We also see here that he was at the top, in the top 10, actually number 1 in passing yards. And we see that he was 6, somewhere around 6 in touchdowns. He had 14 interceptions, 29 sacks, and 171 sack yards. So that's as far as we're going to go today. That's as far as we're going to go in this particular video. I just wanted to spend a little time showing you how to build a dashboard. We're going to spend some time in the next video formatting these visuals and really turning this thing into a true dashboard. So thanks for stopping by. Thanks for looking. Thanks for dropping in, and I look forward to seeing you as we finish up this dashboard. Thanks for stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.